Okay, so we've made our t-shirt yarn, and now what are we going to do with it? Well, there are several patterns that I've found online for t-shirt yarn rugs. You could even make a smaller version of it to use as a sort of like a cushion on a chair. And I think that's what I'm going to do with the yarn that I have here. So I know might not have enough for what I'm thinking of for a rug, but I know I have other t-shirts where I have plenty of the same color that I can use with the rug and keep it nice. But there were several different ways that you could go about making a rug. You could just crochet in rows and have like a rectangle for a rug, or you could crochet in the round, which is what I'm going to show you today. And I even found a pattern today for one that's made up with making hexagons and then piecing them together, which might be a cool idea when I actually do the rug that I want to do for my house. But let's get started. You're going to want a very large crochet hook. I think this one is a P, but the pattern that I'm going off says she went with the largest hook that she had on hand, which she had a Q, which is larger than this. But you're going to, because we're working with a bulky yarn, we're going to want to use a larger hook. And she said you could do one of two ways of starting it. You could use what they call a magic loop, or you could do a chain 2 and then crochet as normal. And I think with this, I'm going to use the magic loop because it is such a bulky yarn. I think the magic loop will make it easier to work with. So we're going to start with a magic loop, and to do that, I'm going to take the short tail, wrap it around our fingers, and the short tail is going to be underneath the tail that's attached to the ball. I'm going to stick our crochet hook in through the loop, yarn over, just wraps it around the hook, pull it up, yarn over, and pull through that loop. Okay, so we're going to do 6 stitches like that. So I'm going to stick it in through the big loop, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, and this time we're going through both loops that are on the hook, and that is a single crochet. So I got 1 single crochet there, and I'm going to do 5 more. So we're sticking our hook through the loop, yarn over, pull the yarn up, yarn over, and pull through both loops. Let's see. 3. You can see why using the magic loop is probably the best idea, because you can adjust the size of the loop. Okay, so we're going to do 4. Go in through the big loop, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through both of those loops. Okay, 1 more. Yarn over, pull through, yarn over, and pull through both loops. And 1 more. Get our hook into the big loop, yarn over, pull up the yarn, yarn over, and pull through both loops. Okay, now that we have our 6 stitches in there, what we're going to do is pull on that short tail that we have hanging there, and that is going to our circle. All right, so next row, we're going to do 2 single crochets in each stitch. And if you could see, there's like a V formed at the top. Each one of those V's is a stitch. So we're going to take our hook and insert it. I'm just going to insert it into the back loop. So I'm going to go into the top of the stitch where it has that V there and just go to the back of it. And yarn over, pull through the yarn over and pull through both the loops. And that is 1 single crochet. And we're going to do 2 of those in each of these stitches around. So I'm going to go into that loop again, pull up some yarn, and pull it through both loops. And see, this creates a very heavy material. Okay, so we're going to the next stitch. I'm going to insert our hook into the top of our stitch, yarn over, pull through some yarn over, and pull through both loops. I'll do that again. Yarn over, pull through both loops. And then we're doing that in this 3rd stitch. Insert your hook in the top of the stitch, yarn over, pull through some yarn over, and pull through both loops. And we're just going to do that 3 more times. And you might want to have like a bread tie or something that you can use as a marker. That way you know where your rows or your rounds begin and end. Okay, so 3 more times. Insert through the top of the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through both loops. Go through the top of the stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, and pull through both loops. Go to the next stitch, over, pull through, yarn over, pull through both loops. And the last one. $18 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 stitches. I jumped ahead. Okay, so we have 12 stitches because we started out with 6, and then in the next row or the next round we did 2 crochets in each of those stitches, so that would give us 12 stitches. And in the next round we're going to do 1 single crochet, and then in the next stitch we're going to do 2 single crochets, and we're going to do that all the way around. Okay, so we're going to insert our hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, and pull through those 2 loops. That'll be 1 stitch. Then we're going to the next stitch. Insert our hook, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through both loops. And we're doing 2 stitches in that stitch. Then in the next stitch, we're just doing 1 single crochet. And then in the next stitch, we're going to do 2 single crochets. And we're going to continue that all the way around. Let me find a marker I can use. Okay, so I'm going to use one of my stitch holders as a marker since this yarn is so chunky, so I can keep track of where I am. So that was my first stitch that I made in this row. Okay. And the next stitch, we're just doing 1 single crochet. So we're inserting the hook, yarning over, pulling through, yarning over, and then pulling through both loops. And the next one will be 2. Oops. That was where my yarn tore when I was stretching it. Had a weak spot. I'm going to twist the yarn around those 2 ends around each other a little bit. Let's see, where did I leave off? Okay, I have 1, 2, 1, and this one is 2 stitches. And I'm trying to hold that end where the yarn separated up against the back of my work, because I'm going to work it into my stitch. So I'm holding it right there next to the stitch that I'm in, yarning over, pulling through. You can see when I yarn over, it's going to trap that end in with the rest of the stitch and pull through. I'm going to do that with the other end as well. So I want it to come over top of my long tail, my working yarn, and oops, hold it tight, into a stitch, yarn over, pull through, and see how I'm trapping that end. And just sort of helps to keep it from moving, and then later on we can go back and tuck these ends into the stitches so that they will be nice and tight and won't pull out. Okay, so I am on to 2 stitches. I don't know if you can see how at the front of the stitches it sort of has like a V as well. So you can see that there's 2 stitches in that stitch, 1 stitch in this stitch, and 2 in that stitch. So if you lose track of where you are, that's how you can figure out where you are. Okay, and I'm going to do one stitch, and then 2 stitches. And 1 stitch. And then 2 stitches. Okay. I'm actually going to get my other ball of yarn. And while I do the next stitch, I'm going to change colors. So you'll see how that's done. Okay, so in each round, we're just increasing by 6 stitches. And then in between, you want to sort of evenly space them around your round. And I'm going to do my first stitch in my white. So I'm doing 1 single crochet in the next 2 stitches. And to do my color change, what I'm going to do is, instead of yarning over and pulling my white through both the loops, I'm going to yarn over with my teal and pull that through both loops. And the reason I like to do it that way is because when I start out with the next stitch, it's going to be completely teal. We'll see. Let me work my tail in. You can see the stitch is completely teal. Otherwise, what would happen would be this top stitch here, or the top of the stitch, would have been white. But because I used my new color to finish off the last stitch that I made, I now have a completely blue stitch. Okay, so I have 1, 2, and I need to work that in underneath my stitches as well. Okay, then we're going to do 2 single crochets in the next stitch. Just let me put in my marker so I don't lose track of where I am. Okay, so 2 stitches, 1 and 2. And then 2 stitches of just single crochet, 1, 2, and then 2 stitches, or 1 stitch of 2 single crochets in 1 stitch. Okay, we're going to continue working that all the way around. And we're just going to continue doing that sort of, working in that sort of pattern until you get the rug or the cushion, in this case, to the size that you want it. And if you notice, if your rug starts to like ruffle up on you, you may have too many stitches in a row, and I suggest that if that happens, just rip it out. And it's real easy to rip out with crochet. And you can just do a single crochet to help flatten things out. Now if you find that it's cupping up too much, you may need to add some more increases in. That would be another neat use for t-shirt yarn, is you could create baskets, and you would start out the same, and just when you get to a point where the bottom of the basket is as big as you want, you just do single crochets all the way around, and that'll build up the sides on your basket. So that would be a cool use for the t-shirt yarn as well. Okay, so when I finish this round, I'll have 24 stitches. And then if we're doing 6 increases on each round, the next round will have 30 stitches. Basically, each new round you start, you're going to increase the number of just plain single crochets that you're doing by 1. So you notice that we started out for round 3, we started out with 1 single crochet in the next stitch, 2 single crochets in the next stitch. The 4th round, we're doing 1 single crochet in the next 2 stitches, and then 2 single crochets in the next stitch. Hopefully that makes sense. I know it's really hard trying to explain this virtually and not being able to see what people are doing or if they have questions or anything. So if you do have any questions, please let me know, and I will try to explain it. We'll finish out this round. We're doing 1 single crochet in the next 2 stitches. And then in the next stitch, we're doing 2 single crochets. And then 1 single crochet in the next 2 stitches. So that's 1 crochet, 1 single crochet. And in the next stitch, we're doing 2 single crochets. And then in the next 2 stitches, we're just doing 1 single crochet. And the next stitch, we're going to do 2 single crochets in the same stitch. And 1 crochet, 1 crochet, and we're going to end up with 2 single crochets in the last stitch. Okay. And just keep working in that same manner until you get your circle as large as you want it. So I'm back with my crochet project, and I decided to go ahead and try to make a basket and see how it turned out, and I think it's pretty cool. What I did is, once I got the circle to the big as I wanted it to be, I just did 1 crochet in every single stitch around, and that's what build up the sides. Now I could also like alternate with that, doing some rows with just plain single crochet in every row, and then other rows doing the increases intermittently around the row, and it would make the sides come up more at an angle rather than straight up. But this is what I decided to do. And I'm at the end of my basket. I'm ready to finish it off. And let me show you how to finish it off. So we're going to take our hook, insert it into our next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, and instead of yarning over again and pulling through both of those loops, I'm just going to take that yarn and pull it through the loop that I already have on my hook. I'll show it again. Insert the hook, yarn over, and pull through the hook, the loop that's on the hook. And that is called a slip stitch. And then to finish it off completely, to fasten off the work, I'm just going to yarn over, pull through my loop, and pull that end all the way through and fasten it off. And I will actually be adding to this project or reworking it, so I'm going to leave that loose for now. And then the loose ends that are inside here, what I can do is take one of my smaller hooks and I'm just going to weave those ends into my stitches. And that'll help secure the yarn and get rid of those unsightly ends that are sticking out. And once you've weaved it in, you can trim off what's left and stretch it out a little bit. That is that is my basket that I'm working on. So as I said, I'd really love to see anything that you come up with. Be sure to share it with us. And if you like this program, let us know. Share it with your friends. Let them know about the great programming that Somerset County Library has on their website. And I haven't found any patterns for knitting with the t-shirt yarn, but we can always give it a try and see how it works. And these are the largest needles that I have. These are a size 11. I may have larger ones in my adjustable kit that I have. And there's a few different ways that you can, it's called casting on your stitches onto your needles. Most of the cast-ons are done with a long tail cast-on. And what that is you'll make a slip knot in your yarn, and you'll have a long tail sticking out on the one side, and that's going to make up our stitches. And generally the rule that I use is to have like 1 inch of yarn for each stitch that I need to cast on. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, which is why I will be experimenting with some of the other cast-ons that are out there. And I did that real quick, so let me do that again. So you're making a loop around your fingers. Make a loop around our fingers. And the long tail that is still attached to your ball is going to be underneath the loop that you just created. And you're going to take your needle, stick it into the loop underneath that long tail, and then back up through the loop. So it'll look like that. And then you're just going to tighten it. And that is a slip knot. Okay, so to cast on, I'm going to have your tail that's attached to the ball of yarn, and you have your short tail. And you're going to hold them like this. So the long tail will be wrapped around your finger and the short tail wrapped around your thumb. And you're going to take your needle and go under the short tail and then over the long tail, and then pull it through that loop, and that forms a starter for the stitch. And I'll show you it again. Go under and over, back through, and tighten it up. And you don't want to make it too tight, because then you won't be able to get your needles in to the stitches. Under, over, and through. Over and through. Over and through. Under, over, and through. Over and through. And maybe I'll get one more out of here. Oops, maybe not. There we go. Okay, so I just cast on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 stitches there. And that is the foundation for our project. And then we can start knitting. And we're going to take our needle that doesn't have anything on it, insert it through the front of the work and up through that first loop that's on the other hook, or on the other needle. You can see I'm holding my yarn with this finger yet. And take the needle behind and pull it through the loop that's on this needle. And then once we've pulled it through, we take that loop off the needle. So we have a new loops formed on this one. Okay, so through the front, yarn over, and pull it back through the loop and push it off the needle. And there may be some of you who have knit before, then you're like, that's not how I knit. I do what is called Continental knitting, and that is where you hold the yarn in the one hand, and you sort of use the needle to pick the yarn and pull it through. Now there is an American style of knitting where you hold the yarn in your right hand and you insert the hook needle just as I did before, but then you throw the yarn around the needle. So I have the yarn in this hand, throw it around the needle, and then pull it through. And sometimes I use both techniques depending on what I'm doing. If I'm working with multiple colors, I might be using the Continental for one color and the American style with the other color. But for me, the Continental was easier for me to do. So it's like, whatever is easy for you to do it that way. I know there's some people that is like, that's not real knitting or whatever, but for me, it makes the exact same stitch. So it's just whatever is more comfortable for you. And we're just going through the front of the loop, yarn over, pull it through. Going through the front of the loop, yarn over, pull it through. Go through the front of the loop, yarn over, pull it through. And last stitch. Okay, so we've completed one row. And this bulky yarn, you can really see the stitch definition there. And you can see the loops forming that form the stitch. Okay, to do the next row, you just change hands. The stitch or the needle that has the stitches on it already is always going to be in your left hand. Now I'm right-handed, so I haven't done any searches to see if there's any left-handed versions of knitting or if it's all done the same way. We'll just insert our needle through the front of the loop, yarn over and pull through, push that loop off. And as you gain experience, it will go faster. And it works pretty well with the t-shirt yarn, actually. You're going to make sure you're using a large size needle. And I would just do the simple, this is called a garter stitch. And it's just simply knitting every single row. And you just get a nice rectangle when you're done. So that is two possibilities of ways that you can use your t-shirt yarn. Okay, so say that you have gotten to the end of your project and you're ready to finish it off. Let me show you how to finish off a piece of knitting. And I know I'm not going to have enough to complete this, but I should be able to at least show you how it's done. So you're going to insert your needle as if you were going to knit the stitch. Pull it through. And you're actually going to knit the first two stitches here. So we'll go ahead and knit those first two stitches. And then once you have your two stitches on there, you're going to put your left needle into the very first stitch that's on this hook or on this needle. And you're going to pull it over top of the other stitch. And it goes away. Let me knit another stitch here. Then I'm going to put my needle in that first stitch that's on my hook or on my needle and pull it over top of the other loop. You can see it gives it a finished edge there. So that is how you finish off a piece of knitting.